and gentlemen, this is Chess Stars show, and I would like to introduce our guest. My name is Sasha Star, and let's start with Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Happy New Year. Welcome to my home. Thank you for having me on again.
I'm glad to see your home as usual instead of your blackboard at your
Yes.
auditorium. And we have Jim Eat from Eat Foundation.
Thank you, Sasha. Great to be here.
Okay, we have Grandmaster correspondent Dan Fleetwood. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And we have a founder of the network, Nick Palivera, 3 times Florida chess champion.
Thank you, Sasha. I'm going to be in the back working. So,
okay, that's
you guys
fine.
I'll be in the back working and listening listening to the comments. So I'll see you guys on the back. All right.
Okay, Nick.
Okay, glad to have you as always. So let's start with we have a break with all this Christmas, New Year celebrations and so on. Hopefully everybody enjoyed themselves. And in the meantime, there was a spectacular tournament. It was a World Championship, Rapid and Blitz.
Yeah.
Both events, as you know, dominated by former world champion Magnus Carlsen. Now is, of course, it's a brilliant performance in both events, only one loss, and complete domination. Let's face it, it's
Yes.
there's no one can touch him at the chessboard. Maybe some other, maybe in the soccer, maybe somebody can defeat him, and some other games, not on the chessboard. Any time control, it's impossible. So the next big thing is the candidates tournament, by the way, in Toronto. And what's interesting is that there is no unifying system of qualification to this premier event. I think this event is second only to the World Championship, at least in classical chess, because in Rapid and Blitz, we have many other very significant events, including Carlsen's tournament and just finished Rapid and Blitz championships. But in classical time control, this candidates is a very, very, very important tournament. I would like to ask Ken, what do you think about failure of Wesley So to get his place in the candidates? Is it his complacency, or is it opportunistic tournaments won by, of course, Ferrugia?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, should Wesley So have played in, traveled to Europe, played in some other tournament than last month to see if he could out Elo gain Ferrugia? Certainly would have been fair. It must be said that Lenier Dominguez tried exactly that and failed. And one reason he failed is that he was paired against a lot of heavily underrated opponents. So the one reality is in these open tournaments with a lot of underrated players, an effect that I am still registering, the odds are stacked against you. But Ferrugia overcame them fair and square. In the end, FIDE did not rate the matches that Ferrugia played that were arranged to try to get him Elo, but they did rate the established working Rouen International Tournament, which was a recognized FIDE tournament for rating purposes, and all credit to Ferrugia for defeating Gadakamsky and some other strong players. So he earned it. And thing is, should Wesley So have traveled overseas? Well, the odds would have been stacked against him for the reason I said. So we just have to accept that's the system. It's based on rating, and all rated tournaments count. And Ferrugia pipped him at the post, as we would say in Britain.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many ways to get qualification, and it's unclear until the very last moment because of this tournaments and matches organized in the very last time to get through. Dan, what I'd like to ask you, what do you think about the old qualification interzonal tournaments, where if it would be, say, 3 interzonal tournaments, so the 2 winners of each tournament would be qualified to candidates, and of course, loser of the World Championship match and whoever was in the second place will qualify automatically. So that was popular system, say 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 years ago. So what do you think about this system? Do you think that it's a fair, more fair system than what's right now?
So I think it's easy to say that each system is unfair in a different way. So the old system, of course, you had to go through the zonal and the interzonal, and the complaints were always that some results could be prearranged and that some contestants had an easier path to qualification than others. Now, I'm not sure that holds up in scrutiny in all cases, but there certainly were a lot of complaints and frustration that I think in the West, people thought that perhaps some of the Soviet bloc players were unfairly advantaged. And within the Soviet system, there were very, very strong players who never really got the opportunity to play the top events because of limited opportunities within particular zones. I think the current system has, at least to its advantage, that it gives you 3 or 4 different pathways to the candidates, and it maintains high levels of interest. And so I think, in those ways, it's good. It certainly does lead to a lot of uncertainty, as we saw in the last few months, as to who will actually be the qualifiers and opportunities to potentially game the system. But in the end, we have a field of 8 strong candidates who got there according to the rules, and it should be a wide open event.
And
Yes, you can, please.
I would say it must be said also that there was a race in the FIDE circuit. So recognizing, I'll say Grand Prix loosely, tournaments. And although it was arranged kind of last minute, the Chennai Masters was the first ever 2,700 plus classical round robin held in India. So
yeah, that was a great event.
Yeah.
It was a great event, and that's how Gukesh came and got ahead of Anish Giri at the last minute.
Mm-hmm. Jim, I would like to ask you, speaking about this system, the present system, there are many different ways how one can be qualified to candidates, and also the events are being spread in so many months, if not a year, along. So that's another factor which I don't know, you can view either as positive or negative, because you see, when you are coming to the candidates, it's a very impactful event which is spread over maybe 2, maximum 3 weeks, and that's it. So you have to be in your top form during this 2-3 weeks event, and that's it. Now, whereas the other events spread over a year, you can be in very good form in one event and then not so good form in yet another event and then another way to qualify. How you view that system, James? Do you think that absolutely best system for qualifiers?
Well, I don't know what the absolute best system is. And as Dan said, there's all sorts of criticisms of any system that you can devise. I think that there is a lot to be said for the current system. And Ken is looked at and tried to quantify form. It's not so easy to do. And it is a factor, and there's no question that the old interzonal system, which I grew up on and I would, always thought was the best, there were definitely implications of the Soviets, controlling certain outcomes and trying to. Fischer was a classic example of a complainer about that, but I think with legitimate reason. So, this type of system, they have multiple ways that you can qualify, and it's very interesting. And I think it puts a lot of focus on tournaments that wouldn't get so much focus if they weren't part of the qualifying process. So I think they're trying to create something that's both fair and something that would be popular as well. A couple of things that I wanted to mention was I wanted to be clear that Ken was talking about underrated players. I think that is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, a layover of the COVID effect where we weren't.
Exactly.
Yeah, young players were not playing and they were getting stronger.
Like Lanier was paired against Pranav rated 1859.
Yeah.
When my estimation formula, which continues to be highly accurate, I'm doing the Rilton Cup and the Kaplan Hastings Masters right now, put Pranav in the 2200s. So.
Yeah. So in any case, I just wanted to say, the shout out to Wesley So. He's been a world-class player for a long time. Fabiano seems to have taken over that mantle of the player from the U.S. that has the best chance of competing for the World Championship.
Yeah, but, Fabiano qualified in 5 completely different ways for the candidates.
So he seems to have reached that level of near dominance. And then talking about dominance, Carlsen actually won everything pretty easily and lost a rating point. So how does that happen? So a lot of really interesting stuff going on in chess right now, including the candidates. But I wanted to call our attention to FIDE's policy regarding dress. They introduced the dress code. And the controversy that's arisen is that they seem to be applying it to women and not to men. At least that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if anyone else has heard different, but there was one woman disqualified for wearing a type of shoe, and other men in the event were wearing.
I think she was just fined €100.
Okay, she was, but in any case, punished and somehow, and singled out. From what I could tell,
right.
Other people were in violation of the FIDE dress code as well, but they were male and were not.
So I actually pitched in an opinion that Burberry or not, they were sneakers.
Yeah,
so at least the way the dress code was written, it was fair. The question is, was it applied equally? Were there men wearing sports shoes that are similarly lacy, sneakery that were not fined?
So the general thing of sports shoes that definitely qualified, and the punishment was not in question in terms of FIDE dress code. Now, should FIDE have the dress code in first? That's my question. I don't think that they should, but if they do, they have to be a little bit more careful about how they define it. And if they do, they have to enforce it equally. And if there's any question of unequal treatment of players, then that's a subject of outrage for me.
That is, yes, absolutely.
Jim, what if there would be a law that would allow men to play topless, but not women? How would you deal with that?
Or bare-shouldered. That's the other thing. The regulations for women had one extra clause about revealing clothing. But the thing is, we don't have anything to reveal above the level of the table. That's the thing. I don't know.
Well, that is all criticism that I've heard going back to my playing days when women were distracting us over the board, and I said, if your powers of concentration are that weak, you really shouldn't be playing chess.
Whenever I played few women in tournaments, except my wife, I always, if I were white, I would start with the move 8-3, immediately eliminating go opening preparations on their part as well as on my part.
Yeah.
By the way, you know what's the best reply to 8-3?
A6.
G6.
Yeah. Carlsen apparently played A6 and H6 against Kramnik recently. So in an online game. I was flashing. So the dress code controversy has one other thing that's impacted me for over 40 years. I have been in at Oxford and other places where men are expected to wear shoes. but I find shoes uncomfortable. So the other opinion that I contributed is that if your sneakers are black, they won't look like sneakers. Dan, you saw me wearing these at Vanderbilt.
Yep.
You know, I've never had any problem wearing a black tie robe, black robe, and these sneakers. They look.
I have a story about that. John Fedora, it's a grandmaster from New York, was playing in Seattle when Seattle was hosting the U.S. Championships, and they had a similar kind of dress code, and so he painted his sneakers black,
Yeah.
and he got away with it.
Yeah.
Jim,
I've done that for 40 years.
Jim, is your next book will be Dress Code for Dummies?
Yeah. I think that we always thought of men in suits and ties presenting a certain image for chess players, and I kind of thought that was pretty cool. But then again, how do you apply that to women? What is the comp per suit and tie? But I don't know about enforcing these dress codes, and I don't know if we really need them, but I do think that we have to enforce them equally. And when you talk about the difference of men and women's dress and what's considered proper, it gets very thorny. So my instinct is to stay out of it.
Jim, what about women using cosmetics in chess tournaments? Are they still allowed to do so?
That I don't know that the FIDE dress code addressed that, but in my opinion, you can show up looking like however you want to show up, as long as you aren't violating any city, municipal, or federal state laws.
I think it's important, of course. Dan, have you ever had dress issue problems in your?
Not
No,
correspondent.
No, so I found one type of dress shoe that is comfortable for me, and I have a stack of like 5 or 6 extras stocked up. So
That's it, yeah?
yeah. So anyway, I just always dress kind of like business casual or so, and no one's ever complained. So
We're professors, yeah. So.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
It's nice.
we have that luxury.
Mhm.
So Carlson, in one of his recent interviews, mentioned that he values chances in the candidates almost one-way proposition. It's a Caruana. He is out prepares everybody. He's playing better than anybody at this moment, and he believes that he's definitely a favorite. Dan, would you agree with that, or you have some other preferences?
So Caruana's the easy favorite, but Nakamura has had an incredible year. So I think right now Nakamura is one of the folks who's kind of hottest in terms of classical results. I mean, the issue that Naka has always had over the years is he gets into certain positions and it seems like he reverts to almost a blitz bullet type of mentality, and he'll rush moves, and he seems to have overcome that over the last 12 to 18 months, and so I'm really looking for an event where any one of 3 or 4 of the folks could come out.
Who are others beside Caruana and Nakamura?
Well, Gukesh, of course, has had, and then after that. You could throw Firouzja could get hot, so it's really hard to predict. So if Caruana falters, then Caruana and Nakamura are probably the 2 who are most experienced and who understand the nature of the event the best of the group, and so having experience is always a positive. And, but again, if someone gets on a heater.
With Gukesh, I have my reservations because it will be first real tryout of Gukesh playing almost every day elite top level grandmasters all the time. I'm not saying that he's in any way inferior to them, but it's kind of a new situation for him, and we'll see. He will be definitely tested. And Ken, what's your opinion of how you evaluate chances of specifically these
Yeah.
top
So I,
four favorites?
so I think the first main question will be, are the newcomers ready for prime time? Ready to play in a really rigorous double round robin tournament. And if they're not, then the tournament may become about scoring wins against them. And we might see a tournament where +4 will be needed to win rather than +2 or +3. So that's I think the first interesting point. Is it going to become a tournament about winning rather than keeping steady, going undefeated and winning just a few games? And then I think the question about Nakamura versus Caruana is definitely the other one. Of course, there's Nepo, and Nepo has established that he is adept at winning these double round robin candidate tournaments. So he should not be counted out.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say is elite double round robin tournaments I've always thought were the best, the absolute good best test of strength. The Swiss systems are so random, and how many points do you have to get? But when you're all facing each other with white and black, it really is a test of your form, of your innate strength. And it's to me, the ideal way. The winners of that type of tournament, I always hold in high esteem. And Nepo has done it. Fabiano has shown that he can do it. And the wild card that Nakamura, the other thing that's really interesting is now that Carlsen is taken out, because Nakamura was the last person Carlsen wanted to play. And part of it is because Nakamura is so successful outside of chess, over the board chess, in his streaming ability to have so many stream viewers. So his income is not dependent on prize money, and Carlsen is trying to do the same type of thing. So they are competing on a very different level than the classical chessboard. So I think, with Carlsen out of the picture, Nakamura is going to be more of a factor, because I think that removes one of the tensions that was there present for both Carlsen and Nakamura. It's no longer there because Carlsen is no longer playing classical chess.
So actually, all possible matches on the very top level would be very interesting. Unfortunately, Carlsen is not going to be part of this match. Dean Lejeune, okay, he's a world champion, but we'll see how he will fare against top guns such as Nakamura, Caruana, or even Nepomniachtchi second time around.
Yeah.
Ruj, there are some few other players that we never discussed what are their chances.
Everyone has a shot at this level.
Jim, I just want to make some reservations about, you said that this is by far the greatest system candidates. There is one only problems where I see it is that, let's see, in the first round, you're playing obviously well-motivated opponent who can still has his own chances of drawing. But let's see if his tournament is not doing really well, then in second round, he may not be motivated to play at all. And therefore, it could be by name the same opponent, but in real strength, it's quite different. Hopefully, it's not going to happen very often, and there are a few cases like that. One of them I remember were, and I think in the first candidate that Nepomniachtchi won, he was playing the other Russian player Alexeyev, who is not doing that great either before or after this tournament, and it was very easy game with Nepomniachtchi against him, and that somewhat affected, I think, result of this tournament. But
that's true in all sports, though. Like I played, the Yankees played the Baltimore Orioles when the Baltimore Orioles were hot, and Red Sox played them when they were playing bad. It's a factor.
Okay, it's a sport, so it's so we're all in agreement who's the favorites of candidate tournaments. Ken, maybe you have a schedule of what are the next interesting tournament upcoming in the next few weeks.
Oh, sorry, I missed some of what you said. Scheduled what?
Tournaments in the next few weeks are
Well, there's
interesting.
Vacancy. That's the next big one.
It starts what, next week?
I think it starts next week. I have to look.
Yeah.
So that will have Anish Giri as defending champion. Maybe some.
I'm kind of
is Carlson playing in that? Wait a sec.
I'm kind of sorry Yuri's not playing. I've grown an affection. I have affection for him. He's a great interview.
Yeah. Yes, it starts on Friday. It starts a week from tomorrow, and so let's see. So it's right. Giri is playing, and Carlson is not. But it has Ding Liren. Is that what you said?
Wow.
Ding Liren is supposed to play. So that's already a momentous occasion because it'll be his first tournament after the hiatus. So since first tournament since he won the world title. And Gukesh is playing, and Firuzja is playing, and Praggnanandhaa is playing. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and Niepo is playing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And is Vidit in the candidates? 5. And Abdusadarov. Wait a second. We just
No, he's not part of
okay. But anyway, a lot of it's going to be a fantastic tournament. That's quite right. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to say for how many decades it's been a great tournament.
It is always a great tournament, yeah. How many world champions for playing in Kasparov and Anand.
15 rounder, bigger than other elite tournaments. So
it's still 14 players event, 13 rounds, yeah.
Right.
So who are the favorites in your opinion?
Well, the biggest unknown is how well is Ding Liren going to play.
Right.
Shaking off his rust. And then maybe the next big unknown is will Firuzja have fashion and bullet off his mind? He famously played 300 plus games of bullet chess on one night during the previous candidates tournament. And
good for him. Good for him.
And I think for Praggnanandhaa, this is going to be a really valuable preparatory top level event.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So.
Besides Ding Liren, any Chinese players playing in the weekend?
Wei Yi. So who was a really hot, up and coming, brilliant young player, then kind of plateaued a little bit. And then there's one other notable Chinese player who is not playing in a women's section. That's Zhu Wenjun, women's world champion. So I mean, she's only rated 25.49. So. But she is. I'm going to see if I can figure out. Did she qualify? The women's world chess champion. Actually, maybe that is a regular point. Whether the women's world champion is now invited to Vacancy. That's another thing you'd have to ask about.
Well, and all these women's world champions are being beaten in men's tournament weekends there, but they're still coming. It's good. It's perseverance, obviously, at its best. We'll see how it happens this time around. I would like to thank you very much for this program, and looking forward for next week. And we'll have more information about all these upcoming events, including weekends there. And hopefully, Ding Liren will not change his mind. He will actually play.
Yeah, it's hopefully who will actually play?
Ding Liren.
Oh yes. Well, but he's down to play in Vacancy.
We will know that when he will arrive in.
Yes, we'll know that when he arrives. Exactly. I agree with that.
And
I just want to say one other thing. If you want to get some idea of how Magnus Carlsen plays, encapsulated in one game, his round 10 game at the World Rapid when he beat Fedoseev with black features computer-like maneuvering by Carlsen and eventually forcing Fedoseev's king to a6 where it got hunted down. So that's one game in a nutshell of how Carlsen plays and wins.
Thank you, Ken. And I wanted to encourage and congratulate Dan in competing in the next cycle in the World Chess Correspondence Championship.
Right.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Dan was good. I was glad to have you on the program. Thank you very much, and Jim and Ken, of course. And looking forward to see you next week, same place, same time.
Thanks, Seth.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.